He had it all mapped out, his sister's wedding in Portugal, his whole family flying over, a long weekend full of toast and sunshine and someone else's money. He just forgot one small detail. He forgot I keep records. He forgot I back everything up. And he forgot that a woman who has been quietly paying for everything for 12 years knows exactly where every dollar went and exactly how to make that matter.
If you're watching this video, tell me where you're from or what time it is for you. The snow had been coming down for about 20 minutes by the time Adrian pulled into that side street off Dahman. Not a parking spot, just a gap between a FedEx truck and a recycling bin. He put the car in park but left the engine running. That was my first signal something was wrong. Adrian never left the engine running. He was too careful about that, too mindful of the gas gauge, the idle, the meter running on things that cost money. He didn't look at me right away. He was doing that thing he did when he was arranging words, buying himself a second, touching the rim of the steering wheel, adjusting his grip. I was still in my work coat, a gray wool thing from J. Crew I'd bought on sale 3 winters back, and I'd been looking forward to getting home. I had a client deliverable due the next morning, a rebrand package for a dental group in Bucktown, and I needed 2 more hours minimum. I was already calculating how I could eat something standing up in the kitchen without losing time. Then Adrian said it. "So listen, about Portugal." "Okay." I turned to look at him. He was still watching the windshield. "I want to be up front with you. There was a situation with the guest list. Nadia and Thomas have been trying to keep it really tight. Blood family, immediate family, and the venue has a strict capacity." I didn't say anything. I was waiting to find out what this had to do with me. "So the thing is," he touched his lip, "your ticket. The timeline got away from me and I didn't get around to adding you to the reservation when I had the chance. And at this point, the block is full." The heat was blowing through the vents. Some Christmas song was bleeding out of a bar down the block, tinny and distant. I could smell the coffee he'd bought at the BP near the office, the paper cup still in the cup holder. Dark roast. He always got dark roast. I said quietly, "I'm sorry." "Say that again." He turned to me then, and I saw it in his face, the prepared look, the one that meant he had run through this conversation already, maybe more than once, and he had his angles ready. "I know it's not ideal, but honestly, I was thinking this could be good timing for you. You've been so slammed with work, a week to yourself, no obligations. I'll book you a spa package somewhere nice. Lake Geneva, maybe. My treat." His treat. I sat with that for a second. His treat. With my money. The same money that had paid for his parents' flights, his aunt's hotel room, his cousin Derek's seat in business class because Derek had a bad back, apparently, and couldn't do coach. The same money I had transferred $11,200 of over the course of October to cover every single person in Adrian's family's trip to the Algarve, his treat. I started laughing. I didn't plan to. It came out sharp and high, the kind of laugh that has nothing to do with anything being funny, and once it started, it didn't stop right away. I pressed my hand over my mouth. Adrian's face cycled through 3 or 4 expressions in about 4 seconds. Defensive, annoyed, something that might have been unease. "Renata, come on." I stopped laughing, just like that. "Don't," I said. "You're being—" "Adrian." My voice came out completely flat. "Do not tell me what I'm being." He looked away. Out the window again. Snow was starting to coat the windshield. I said, "I want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. I paid for your parents to go. I paid for your aunt to go. I paid for Derek and his girlfriend to go. I paid for Nadia and Thomas to go. I paid for you to go," I paused, "but I am not going. It's not personal." I finished it for him. "Right," he sighed. That sigh, the one that communicated that I was being difficult and he was being patient. I opened the car door. "Renata." "I need some air," I said. "I'll see you at home." I walked 3 blocks in the snow with no hat on before I realized I didn't have a destination. I just needed to be somewhere that wasn't that car. I wasn't crying. That surprised me. What I felt was something colder and more specific than sadness. It was the feeling of a piece clicking into place, like a puzzle that had been bothering you for months, something in your peripheral vision that never quite resolved, and then all of a sudden you see it. The picture. Clear. I took out my phone and I texted my best friend Claire. I said, "You up? I need to talk." She called me back in 45 seconds. Let me take you back, because none of this started in that car. It started 2 months earlier, in September. One of those mornings that still felt like summer. Warm enough that I had the kitchen window cracked. Cool enough that the air actually moved. I was at my desk in the corner of the kitchen. I had a cup of French press coffee, the good stuff from a roaster on Milwaukee Avenue that cost $19 for half a pound and was absolutely worth it. And I was building out a mood board for a client, a wine bar in Wicker Park wanting to rebrand before their 5th anniversary. Elegant but approachable. I was pulling colors, textures, typefaces. Adrian came in already dressed, already on his phone. He said, without looking up, "Nadia finally set a date." I looked over. She did? Destination wedding. He scrolled something on his screen. Algarve region, Portugal, late spring. I put my coffee down. Nadia was Adrian's younger sister. She was one of those people who made everywhere she went feel a little more interesting. She'd spent years doing volunteer work in East Africa, had come back speaking 3 languages, and with a Portuguese fiancé named Thomas, who was quiet and kind and genuinely seemed to adore her. Of course she was doing a destination wedding. It was so perfectly her. "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. "Yeah." Adrian finally looked up. "Should be a good time." He slid his phone into his jacket pocket. "Hey, would you mind handling the bookings? Just flights and hotels. I'm drowning right now with the Riverview project and partnership review is coming up." Partnership review. It had been coming up every year for the past 4 years at his commercial real estate firm. The promotion that was perpetually just around the corner while I picked up every slack in our actual life. "Sure," I said. "Send me the details when you have them." He kissed my forehead, quick, mechanical, the kind of kiss that has become habit and nothing more. And he left. I went back to my mood board. Burgundy, blush, a very specific warm cream, serif with just enough weight to it. In the back of my head, I was already calculating. Flights for 2, hotels for 5 nights, wedding gift, something nice to wear that wasn't in my current rotation. Maybe $8,000 all in, if I was careful. We had the money. Barely, but we had it. My design work had been doing well. 3 solid client contracts since August. I didn't think twice about it. That was just how we worked. I handled the logistics. I was good at it. Adrian was busy. There was always a reason Adrian was busy. I didn't ask questions. I hadn't asked questions in 12 years. That was the habit. That was the groove we'd worn smooth. I didn't know yet what was sitting at the bottom of that groove. The details came in 2 weeks later. Nadia sent a group email to the whole family. Her parents, Evelyn and Gerald, her Aunt Patricia, her cousin Derek, and apparently some version of Adrian and me. The email had options for 2 hotels in the Algarve, a timeline for the events, and a link to a regional travel guide she'd put together herself. Adrian forwarded it to me the same day with 2 words, "Can you handle?" I spent a Saturday afternoon on it. I'm thorough when I work. I found a boutique property called Quinta das Rosas, a converted farmhouse outside of Lagos, whitewashed walls and terracotta tiles, and a pool that looked like it had been built into the hillside. The kind of place that charged €400 a night and was worth every cent for 5 days. The photos made the light look like something out of a painting. I pictured us there. That's the thing I keep coming back to. I pictured us there. I pictured myself and Adrian finally exhaling. Finally stepping out of the grind of Chicago winters and client deadlines and his endless partnership review. A morning where neither of us had anywhere to be, eggs and coffee on a terrace, sun on tile, his hand on my shoulder. I should have noticed that I was picturing it harder than usual, like I was trying to will it into being, like something in me knew it needed persuading. I booked 8 tickets, round trip, out of O'Hare, nonstop to Faro. I booked 8 rooms at the Quinta, breakfast included. I put down the deposit on a group rate. The total came to $11,200. I transferred it from our joint account in 2 transactions because a single transfer of that size triggers a notification to both of us, and I didn't want Adrian to feel like I was making a thing of it. The confirmation email landed at 11:47 on a Tuesday night. I hovered over the send button. I know I did. I remember the pause. There was something in the back of my throat that I couldn't name. Not doubt, exactly. More like a low-frequency hum. Intuition trying to break through the surface of 12 years of habit. I pushed it aside. He was my husband. We had been building a life together since we were 31 years old. We had survived job losses and family illness, and one genuinely terrible year when his mother had a health scare, and we both ran ourselves ragged. We had a life. I pressed confirm. The next morning, Adrian looked up briefly from his coffee and said, "You're a lifesaver." Then he went back to whatever he was reading on his tablet. I didn't say anything. I just refilled my cup and went back to work. The night it cracked open the first time was Thanksgiving. His parents lived in Naperville. His mother, Evelyn, had a farmhouse table she'd paid too much for and a talent for hosting that I'll give her credit for. The food was always good. The subtext was always pointed. Evelyn had never quite figured out what to make of me. I was the woman her son had married, which was acceptable. I was also the woman who made more money than her son most years, which was not something she could acknowledge or process gracefully. So instead, she talked about my little design work with a small smile, like she was being indulgent about a hobby, like she was humoring someone's needlepoint. That year, I had 3 open contracts totaling just under $90,000. I did not mention this. I refilled my wine glass and I smiled, and I talked about her new kitchen backsplash, which she had been wanting to redo since August, and which I had encouraged her to pull the trigger on. I was in the kitchen, actually, doing exactly that, refilling my glass with a Pinot Grigio I'd brought because I knew I was going to need it, when Nadia found me. She was wearing a sweater that probably came from some market stall in Lisbon, and she had that particular glow of someone in the middle of something they'd been waiting for. "I'm so glad you're coming," she said. Warm, genuine. That was Nadia. She meant everything at full volume. I know destination weddings are a lot to ask. Thomas and I both kept saying we should keep it small, and then, she laughed, "Here we are with a party of 9. I smiled. "I'm so excited for you. We got a great rate at the Quinta. You're going to love it." Nadia paused. Something in her expression shifted. A small thing, like a hesitation she was deciding what to do with. "The Quinta das Rosas?" she said. "That's the one. 8 rooms, 5 nights, breakfast included." She set her fork down very carefully on the counter. 8, she said. "Right." I looked at her. 8 rooms for 8 people. The silence that followed was maybe 4 seconds long, which is a long time for silence. Nadia said slowly, "Renata, there are 9 of us." The wine glass felt very cold in my hand. The marble counter felt very cold under my fingertips. I said, "What do you mean 9? "Me and Thomas, Mom and Dad, Aunt Patricia, Derek and his girlfriend Cassie, you." She counted on her fingers. "And Adrian. That's 9. I looked at her. She was looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. "The confirmation email listed 8, I said. She picked her fork back up. "I'll check with Adrian. Maybe there was a miscommunication on the details." She moved toward the dining room. I stayed by the counter for a moment. 8 rooms, 8 tickets. Adrian had asked me to book travel for the family. He had forwarded me the group email and said, "Can you handle?" He had not given me a head count. He had not said 8 people or 9. I had looked at the group email, counted the names: Evelyn, Gerald, Patricia, Derek, Nadia, Thomas, and added Adrian and myself, 8. I had not booked 9, because no one had told me there were 9, and now Nadia was going to check with Adrian. I went back to the table. Adrian was talking to his father about the Bears' offensive line. He looked up at me and smiled, easy, unbothered, the smile of a man with nothing on his conscience. I smiled back. I picked up my fork, I ate my dinner, and I said nothing, and I let the question settle into the back of my mind where it would sit, quietly, for the next 2 weeks. Back to December. The car, the snow, Adrian's careful explanation. He had not forgotten to book my ticket. I want to be precise about that because he would later use that word, forget, and it was the wrong word. Forgetting is passive. What Adrian did had a shape to it. He had asked me to coordinate travel for his entire family. He had not put my name in that list. He had let me book 8 rooms and 8 flights with my own money, and he had said, "Thank you. You're a lifesaver." And he had carried that secret from October through November to December. 3 months. He had sat across from me at his mother's Thanksgiving table while I talked about 8 rooms. He had watched Nadia's face shift, and he had said nothing. He'd come home that night and gotten into our bed and slept fine. In the car, I stayed very calm. I asked my questions. I heard his answers. The spa package, Lake Geneva, his treat. I laughed that one sharp laugh, and then I stopped and I opened the door. I said I needed air. I walked in the snow. By the time I got home, Adrian was already there. He was on his laptop at the kitchen table, typing something with the focused efficiency of a man who had decided the hard part of the evening was behind him. I walked past him to the bedroom. I changed out of my work clothes. I came back to the kitchen. "I'm going to order Thai," I said. "You want anything?" He looked up, surprised, maybe relieved. "Sure. Pad Siao." I ordered Thai. I ate my noodles sitting on the couch. I watched 30 minutes of something on Netflix that I couldn't have told you anything about. I said goodnight at 10. I lay in the dark for a long time. I was not sad. I was not angry. I was clear. That is the only word that fits. Like water that had been cloudy for a long time had suddenly gone still. Something had ended. I could feel it. I just needed to figure out what to do next. I waited until Adrian was asleep. He slept on his left side, facing away from me, and within 20 minutes of lying down, he went still and quiet. He had always been a good sleeper. Unbothered sleep is a specific kind of privilege, and he had it fully. I waited another 10 minutes. Then I got up, took my laptop to the kitchen, and started pulling records. I knew where everything was. That was the other part of what he had miscalculated. He was good at the broad strokes of financial life, the big decisions, the strategic thinking. I was good at the paperwork. I was the one who organized the accounts, tracked the expenses, filed the taxes, kept the receipts in labeled folders in my email going back 6 years. I opened the joint account first. The $11,200 transfer was right there, labeled travel. Algarve Group, October 14th. I screenshotted it. Then I went further back. I started building a picture that I had never looked at as a whole picture before. His bar prep course, 2 years before the wedding, $1,100, paid by me from my freelance account. His professional wardrobe refresh when he started at the firm, $2,200, split between my credit card and our joint account. 4 years of his networking dinners, events, conference registrations, client gifts. I ran it conservatively and came up with about $8,000. The marble kitchen island he had insisted we needed when we redid the kitchen 3 years ago. $14,000. His idea. My money, largely. His mother's medical bill when she was hospitalized for 3 days and didn't have sufficient coverage. $4,500. I wrote it all down in a spreadsheet. I labeled it clearly. I saved it in 3 places: my personal laptop, my personal cloud drive, and a USB drive I kept in my desk drawer. Not because I knew exactly what I was planning to do, just because I needed to see it, just because I needed it to exist somewhere outside my own head. By the time I was done, it was 2:40 in the morning, and my coffee had gone cold. I sat in the quiet kitchen, his marble island, my money, and I thought about the woman I had been 6 hours ago, the one who was calculating spa packages and client deliverables and whether to order spring rolls or dumplings. She felt like a different person already. I closed my laptop and I went to bed. I called Claire at 8 the next morning from my car in the parking garage at work. I didn't want to have this conversation in the apartment. Claire and I had been friends since a design conference in Denver 11 years ago. She was a project manager at an architecture firm, sharp and direct and allergic to euphemism. She had also been through her own divorce 4 years back, an experience that had given her a specific kind of hard-won clarity. I told her everything. The booking, the Thanksgiving moment, the car, the spa package. She was quiet for a long moment after I finished. "He let you book the whole thing," she said. "He watched you do it. He let you pay for it." "Yes." "And then he was going to just, tell you at the airport? Or was the plan that you'd figure it out?" "I don't know. He said the timing never felt right." "The timing. Right." Another silence. "Okay," she said. "First question. All of those confirmation emails, the bookings, do you have all of that?" "Everything. I booked it all through my email, my accounts. It's all there." "Good." I could hear her thinking. "Second question. Does he know what you have?" I paused. "He doesn't know I spent the night pulling records. He definitely doesn't know about the spreadsheet." "Keep it that way," she said immediately. "Don't change anything. Don't cancel anything. Don't have any big conversations yet. You need to think clearly before you do anything." A beat. "Have you considered talking to Nadia?" I thought about Nadia's face at Thanksgiving, that careful pause. She hadn't known, or if she had known, she hadn't known everything. "Maybe," I said. "She might know more about what Adrian told the family. She might be a source." "Worth trying," Claire said, carefully. "Don't tip your hand." "Right. Renata." Her voice shifted slightly. "You know, this is more than the wedding." I looked out the window at the concrete wall of the parking garage. "Yeah," I said. "I know." I reached out to Nadia the week after, carefully, like Claire said. Just a text, warm and low-key. "Hey, I know things got a little confusing at Thanksgiving. Any chance you have a few minutes to catch up?" She responded right away. "Of course." Coffee. We met at a place in Ukrainian Village the following Saturday. She came in out of the cold with her hair up and that particular energy she had. Present, a little windblown, genuinely glad to see you. We ordered, settled in, and I thought through how to frame this. I kept it gentle. I said I was still trying to sort out the booking situation, and I wasn't sure what details Adrian had given the family. Had Nadia heard anything from him about why I wasn't on the reservation? Nadia looked at me with that same careful expression she'd had in the kitchen. She said she'd asked Adrian about it after Thanksgiving. He had told her there had been a miscommunication on the details and that it was sorted. Sorted? I asked what that meant to her. She said she had assumed it meant I was being added, that Adrian had handled it. She looked genuinely uncomfortable. She said she had been meaning to follow up with me directly but hadn't wanted to make it awkward. I told her it was fine. I kept my face easy. Over the next hour, I asked, as naturally as I could, what else she'd heard. Whether Adrian had said anything about capacity or the guest list or the family's expectations. Whether she knew of any conversations between Adrian and Thomas's family about who was and wasn't included. Nothing. She had nothing. Adrian had kept her in the dark almost as thoroughly as he'd kept me. I drove home with a list of exactly 0 useful leads from that direction. 2 weeks of careful maneuvering, and I had confirmed one thing: Nadia was not the angle. Adrian hadn't confided in her. He hadn't confided in anyone, which meant I needed a different approach entirely. I called Claire that night. "The Nadia thread is a dead end," I said. "Okay, reset. What do you actually have?" "Financial records, confirmation emails, my own spreadsheet." "That might be enough," she said, "but you need someone to tell you if it's enough, and that someone is a lawyer, not me." I was going to call Claire's lawyer contact the next morning. I had the name written on a Post-it note on my desk at home. Patricia Moss, family law, number, and email. But something happened the night before that changed the order of things. I was at my laptop looking for a vendor contract I needed for a client. A printing company I used regularly had sent over a revised rate sheet, and I couldn't find the email thread. I went into the shared cloud folder Adrian and I had set up years ago for household documents. Insurance stuff, medical records, that kind of thing. We'd both stopped really using it 18 months ago when we drifted toward keeping our work documents separate. I was scrolling through the folders looking for the print vendor file when I saw a subfolder I didn't recognize. The label was just a number, a date from last year. I clicked on it. Inside were emails, a thread. Quite a long thread. The name at the top was Vivian. I didn't know any Vivian. No one in Adrian's office had that name as far as I knew. No client I'd heard of. I started reading. It took me about 30 seconds to understand what I was reading. The language was easy in a specific way. Not formal, not professional. The kind of easy that comes from months of established comfort. Little jokes. References to things they had done together. A restaurant in River North they seemed to go to regularly. A reference to a weekend in Milwaukee that I had believed was a work trip. And then, a few messages down, a reference to Portugal. Vivian asking about the accommodations. Adrian telling her not to worry, it was all sorted. He'd gotten a good rate. My good rate. My boutique hotel. The room I had booked at €400 a night with the breakfast included and the hillside pool. I closed the laptop. I sat in the kitchen for maybe 5 minutes without moving. Then I opened it again. I screenshotted every message in that thread. I saved them to my personal drive. I saved them to the USB. I sent them to a second email account I used only for storage. Then I picked up the Post-it note with Patricia Moss's number. It was 9:43 at night. I texted instead of calling. I said, "My name is Renata. Claire Hendricks gave me your contact. I need to speak with you as soon as possible." She replied the next morning at 8:15. She said, "I have a 9:30 opening today if you can make it." I made it. Patricia Moss's office was on the 14th floor of a building on Wacker Drive, the kind of office that says, "We are serious people who take serious things seriously." Clean lines, no clutter, a view of the river going gray-green in the December cold. She was in her early 60s, silver hair cut close, reading glasses pushed up on her head. She poured me a glass of water before I sat down, and she didn't smile in a performative way or say anything soothing. She just waited. I laid it out, all of it. The booking, the $11,200, the Thanksgiving moment with Nadia, the car, the snow, the spa package offer, the financial records I had pulled, the spreadsheet going back 6 years, the cloud folder. When I got to the cloud folder, she held up a hand. "Stop there. The emails you found in that folder. Have you saved copies?" "Multiple." "Where?" I listed my personal laptop, my personal cloud drive, a USB drive, a second email account. She nodded once. "Good. Now, you said you and your husband have a shared cloud account. Is it possible he could access that folder remotely and delete those files?" I thought about it. "Yes, he has the login. We both do." "Then we need to move quickly," she said. "I want you to forward those screenshots to me before you leave this building. Do not wait. Do not do it tonight. Right now." I took out my phone and started forwarding while she talked. She asked about our financial setup. I told her about the joint account, my freelance income, the pattern of my money going to cover household expenses and his career costs. She listened without comment, taking notes on a yellow legal pad with a pen that looked expensive and well used. When I finished, she set the pen down and looked at me over the top of her reading glasses. Based on what you've told me, the financial contribution documentation is potentially significant. Illinois is an equitable distribution state, which means the court looks at the totality of contributions to the marriage, financial, logistical, and otherwise. A pattern of one spouse subsidizing the other's career and lifestyle is something courts take seriously. And the emails? If they document an ongoing affair, they are relevant to the proceedings. They may affect the court's view of the equitable distribution question, particularly if marital funds were used in connection with the affair. She paused. You said he told you the hotel was booked at a good rate. He used my group booking. Do you have documentation of that? The confirmation email came to my account. The charge is on the joint account. She wrote something down. Okay, she said. Here is what I need you to do. Change nothing, cancel nothing. Say nothing to him. Give me 48 hours to look at what you've sent me, and I'll tell you what we have and what we need. I stood to go. She stood too. One more thing, she said. The folder with those emails. Do not delete them. Do not move them. Leave everything exactly as you found it. I understand. And forward me everything before you get in the elevator. I did it standing in her waiting room, coat half on, phone in hand. Sent it all to the address she gave me. Then I went back to work. I had a rebrand presentation at 2 o'clock for a dental group in Bucktown. I gave that presentation. I got the contract. Some days you do both things. 48 hours later, I went back to the cloud folder. The subfolder was gone. I sat at my laptop and stared at the drive for a long minute. Clicked refresh. Checked the trash. Searched by date. Nothing. He had logged in remotely and deleted it. I called Patricia Moss immediately. She was quiet for a moment when I told her. Then she said, "When did you last access it?" "The night I found it." "I haven't touched it since." "And you sent me screenshots before you came to my office." "Yes." "Good. The screenshots are preserved and time-stamped in your email send history." A pause. "The deletion itself may become relevant. If we can show that the files existed through your email records, your device activity log, and then disappeared after you retained counsel, that speaks to intent. It's not nothing." I sat with that. "But the screenshots alone, screenshots are not nothing either, but you're right that we need corroboration." She was direct about it, which I respected. The financial trail is strong. The hotel booking is documented. But if we want the emails to hold weight, we need a second thread of evidence that confirms the pattern. Can you think of anyone who might have noticed something? A neighbor, a coworker, a mutual friend? I thought about it. "There's a woman in my building," I said slowly. "My downstairs neighbor. She's been there for years. She's observant. I've always had a feeling she notices things." "Talk to her," Moss said. "Carefully, see what she knows." I put my phone down and looked around the apartment. The marble island, his running shoes by the door, a jacket of his on the hook. He had deleted those files, which meant he had logged in sometime in the last 48 hours, seen what was in that folder, and removed it, which meant he knew I had been in there, which meant the clock had moved. Bet lived in 4B, directly below me. She had been in the building for 11 years, which was 3 years longer than Adrian and I had been there. She was 71, retired from 30 years in human resources at a mid-size insurance company, and she had the particular quality of a woman who had spent decades watching people carefully and professionally. She noticed things. She had also, over the years, been quietly kind to me in ways that I hadn't fully registered until that moment. Packages held when I was traveling, a plate of cookies at Christmas. One time, a few years back, she had mentioned, just in passing, just lightly, that she'd noticed my husband had a visitor a few afternoons a month. She hadn't made anything of it. She had framed it as neighborly small talk, the kind of thing you mention just to mention it. I had filed it away as nothing and immediately forgotten it. I knocked on her door on a Thursday evening. She opened it in a robe over her clothes, reading glasses on, and she looked at me for a long moment before she stepped back and said, "Come in." She didn't ask what I was there for. She went to her kitchen and put the kettle on without being asked, and I sat at her table, which had a vinyl tablecloth with a rooster pattern, and waited. She set a mug of tea in front of me. English breakfast, a little strong. She sat down across from me. "I've been thinking," she said, "about whether to come to you." And? I decided yes, but I didn't want to push. She folded her hands around her own mug. A few months back, I started writing things down, dates and times. I do that when something bothers me. She got up and went to a kitchen drawer and came back with a small spiral notebook, the kind you get at Walgreens for $1.29. She slid it across the table. I opened it. 13 entries. Dates going back to late July. Each one noted. Date, approximate time, a brief description. Woman, mid-30s, dark coat, arriving between 1 and 3 in the afternoon on weekdays, staying 2 to 4 hours, car in the lot. I looked up at Bet. "Weekday afternoons," I said, "when you're typically at your office or out with clients." She said it without apology, without drama, just a fact. Did she come when I was home? Not that I ever saw. I looked at the notebook again. Several of the dates had a small asterisk next to them. I pointed to one. "Those," Bet said, "are days your husband told someone on the phone—" I could hear through the ceiling, I apologize, that he was out of town. He was not out of town. I closed the notebook. Betty reached across and put her hand on mine for just a second. Then she took it back and picked up her tea. "I didn't know what to do with it," she said. "I didn't want to be wrong. I didn't want to cause trouble." She looked out her window at the alley below. "I also didn't want you to be the last to know." I asked if I could make a copy of the notebook. She said she'd been hoping I would ask, and she handed me a second, identical notebook from the drawer. She'd already copied it. I held the notebook in both hands. "Thank you," I said. She nodded. "You've been a good neighbor. I'm sorry this is the reason we're finally having a real conversation." I almost laughed. "Me too." I thanked her again at the door. She patted my arm and told me to let her know if there was anything else she could do. I went upstairs and called Patricia Moss. Bet's notebook gave Moss a backbone. We spent the better part of 2 weeks cross-referencing. The dates Betta had recorded against our credit card statements, our bank records, the cell phone bill, which showed a Chicago number Adrian had been texting with a frequency and consistency that had no professional explanation. The picture that emerged was detailed and unpleasant. 13 weekday afternoon visits recorded by Bet over 4 months. On 11 of those days, the credit card showed expenses in Chicago restaurants and bars that I had never visited with Adrian. He had paid separately in cash on some occasions. The gap in the record was its own kind of flag, because Adrian almost never paid in cash for anything. He was a points person. He tracked his rewards miles like a hobby. There was a hotel charge in Schaumburg from a Thursday in September. The same Thursday, he had told me he was attending an industry seminar. The seminar was real. It ended at noon. The hotel check-in was at 2:15. There was a florist charge in October. The same week he had come home empty-handed and told me he'd worked through the weekend. There was a restaurant in the West Loop that showed up on the statement 4 times in 3 months. Nice place, around $90 a head. He had never mentioned it to me. I laid all of this out on my kitchen table one morning with my coffee, and I looked at it for a long time. I want to be honest about what I felt. I expected anger, and I got something quieter. What I felt, mostly, was a kind of retroactive grief. Not for Adrian exactly, for the 12 years of mornings like that one. Me at the table, organizing our life, believing in the version of things he had given me. I had been a good partner. I had been genuinely good at it. I had managed our money and his career and his family relationships and our household and my own work all at the same time without complaint, because that was what we were. That was the deal. He had spent those same 12 years making a different deal on the side. I folded up the grief, put it somewhere it could wait. There would be time for it later. I sent everything to Moss. She called me that afternoon. "This is a strong file," she said. "The financial contributions documentation, the hotel booking that used your funds for what appears to have been a trip with a third party. Betta's log corroborated against the credit card records. This is a pattern of conduct. The other party's name appears to be Vivian Hartley. She works in his building, different firm." I wrote the name down. I didn't know why. I just needed it to be real somewhere outside my own head. "When does he leave for Portugal?" Moss asked. "March 14th, I said. "We'll be ready before then." He left on a Tuesday. He had a 7:15 out of O'Hare, which meant he was up at 4:30, moving around the apartment with the careful quiet of someone trying not to wake you. I was awake. I'd been awake since 3. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing even. His suitcase rolling across the hardwood, the bathroom light briefly, the smell of his deodorant. He came to the bedroom doorway before he left. I felt him standing there for a moment. "Hey," he said softly, "I'm heading out." I made a small sound, sleepy, fine. "I'll text you when I land." Another small sound. He lingered another second. Then he left. I heard the front door close. I lay in the dark and listened to the building settle. Then I got up, made coffee, put on my good coat, and took a cab to Patricia Moss's office. We sat across the table from each other and went through the filing one more time. Everything in order. The financial documentation, the hotel booking evidence, the affair corroboration built from Bet's log and the credit card records, the contribution history. Moss signed where she needed to sign. I signed where I needed to sign. She said, "This will be served within the week, likely before he's back." I nodded. She looked at me, not with pity, with something more like acknowledgement. "How are you doing?" I thought about it, genuinely thought about it. "I'm fine," I said. "I'm actually fine." She nodded once. Believed me, I think, or at least believed it was true enough. I went back to the apartment. Adrian's side of the closet still had most of his clothes in it. The counters had his things on them. The apartment still looked like the apartment we'd shared. I started packing a bag for Claire's. While I packed, my phone buzzed. It was a text from a Portugal number. He said he'd landed, said the weather was beautiful, said miss you already, bringing you something nice. I looked at the message for a moment. I put my phone in my bag and kept packing. He came home on a Sunday, sunburned and relaxed, carrying duty-free bags. I was in the apartment. I had come back from Claire's the day before, specifically to be there when he got home. I wanted to do this in person, in the apartment, cleanly. That mattered to me. He came through the door with his suitcase and 2 bags from the airport shop. He set everything down and found me in the kitchen, and his face did this complicated thing. Relief and something guarded underneath it. "Hey," he said, "you're home." "I'm home." He crossed to where I was standing and kissed me on the cheek. Warm from the flight, that specific travel smell of recycled air and somewhere else. He reached into one of the bags and set something on the counter. A round tin, blue and white, Portuguese pastries, pastel de nata, the little custard tarts. "They're better there," he said. But these were the best I could find at the airport. I looked at the tin. Then I picked up my keys from the counter. They were already in my hand because I had put them there before he came in. I said, "I'm going to stay at Claire's for a while." He looked at me. The ease on his face shifted into something more careful. "Renata, I just need some space," I said. "We can talk later." Is this still about the wedding? Because I know that whole situation. "It's fine," I said. "I just need a few days." He was reading me. I could see him doing it, trying to figure out whether this was the kind of thing that would blow over, the kind of conversation he could manage with the right tone and a few careful words. "Let me explain," he started. "Not tonight," I said. "I just need to go." I walked past him to the door. He didn't block me or grab my arm. He stood in the kitchen holding the duty-free bag and watched me go. At the door, I paused. "The pastries are a nice touch," I said. "Thank you." Then I left. I didn't look back, not because it was dramatic, just because there was nothing back there that I needed to see. He was served on a Wednesday. The process server caught him at 7:40 in the morning in the lobby of his office building on Michigan Avenue. I know this because Moss called me within the hour to confirm. He called me 7 times that day. I let all 7 go to voicemail. I listened to the voicemails that evening, sitting on Claire's couch with a glass of red wine and Claire next to me being quietly, supportively present without making a production of it. The first 2 messages were confused. His voice had that controlled quality of someone trying to process something while maintaining composure. He said there had been some kind of misunderstanding. He wanted to talk. The third was apologetic. His voice dropped. He said he knew he had made mistakes. He said things had gotten complicated in ways he hadn't handled well. He wanted to explain. The fourth was a little harder. He said I was overreacting, that whatever I thought I had found wasn't what I thought, that I owed him a conversation. The fifth was quiet again. He said he was sorry. The sixth was practical. He asked about the apartment, the accounts, who I had as an attorney. The seventh was the quietest of all. His voice was tired. He said he hoped we could handle this like adults. He said he really thought we could work through it. He said he didn't want to lose everything. I listened to that one twice. Not because it moved me, just because I needed to be sure. I felt nothing. Not satisfaction, not sadness, not anger, just quiet. "All 7?" Claire said. "All 7?" She refilled my wine glass. "You good?" "Yeah," I said. "I think I actually am." Patricia Moss was very good at her job. The proceedings took 4 months. Adrian hired an attorney named Glenn, who had the kind of practiced confidence that comes from spending a lot of time in conference rooms. Glenn opened by suggesting that my financial contribution documentation was overstated and that my income during the marriage had primarily benefited me. Moss was unfazed. She had a spreadsheet and she was not embarrassed about it. She laid out 12 years of traceable financial contribution, my freelance income flowing into the joint account, expenses I had absorbed into my personal account to keep the household running, the career support costs I had documented, the wedding booking, the hotel room booked with my money for a trip that, the credit card records suggested, had not been taken by Adrian alone. Glenn got quiet. The affair corroboration, Bet's dated log cross-referenced against the credit card statements and the phone records, was not something Adrian could cleanly explain. Vivian Hartley was real and documented, and the pattern of their contact was plain. In Illinois, proof of an extramarital affair does not automatically determine asset division, but it is a factor the court can consider in evaluating credibility, financial misconduct, and the overall picture of the marriage. Moss used it precisely. Adrian's attorney came back 2 weeks later with revised terms. The apartment went to me. I was the one who had been there most. I had paid the larger share of the mortgage. Adrian found a place in Andersonville, smaller, a rental, a sum reflecting the most documentable portion of my financial contributions over the marriage, a conservative figure carefully assembled, was included in the settlement. Not everything I had put in. Courts rarely give you everything, but enough to restart clearly. His salary at the firm had been quietly reduced during the proceedings, apparently following an internal review that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with a series of client relations issues that had been building for 2 years. The partnership that had always been just around the corner was no longer in the picture. I signed the final documents on a Thursday afternoon in Moss's office. She shook my hand. I thanked her and meant it. I went home to my apartment. Stopped at Whole Foods on the way and bought a good bottle of wine and the ingredients for pasta. I cooked dinner for myself and ate at the kitchen table. His marble island, yes, but also now entirely mine. And I listened to the building, quiet around me, and thought about nothing in particular. It was a very good evening. September arrived the way it always does in Chicago. Summer breaking apart into something golden and cool, leaves just starting to go. The city exhaling before the cold comes back. 1 year since the morning I'd heard about Nadia's wedding. 1 year since I'd stood at this same counter, trusting my husband, unaware. I made espresso. Finally figured out the grind setting that gets it right. Slightly coarser than you'd think, 30 seconds in the hand grinder, tamped medium. I stood at the window with the mug and watched the street below and let myself just be there for a minute. My business had changed shape. I had hired a part-time studio assistant named Yolanda, 26, fast, with a good eye and zero patience for mediocre briefs. We were up to 6 active clients. The dental group in Bucktown had referred me to 2 others. The tech startup I'd signed in the middle of all of this had come back for a second project. I was doing work I was proud of for people who understood what they were paying for, and I was not splitting that income with anyone or subsidizing anyone's career with it. The apartment felt like mine in ways it never had before. Every object in it placed by me, for me, reflecting actual preference instead of some negotiated middle ground. I had repainted the bedroom a color I had wanted for 3 years, and Adrian had vetoed as too dark. It was not too dark. It was exactly right. I had real friendships now, Claire, obviously, but also Nadia. That one still surprised me. Nadia had called me 2 weeks after the filing. She had been direct, a little formal at first, and then quickly not. She said she was sorry. She said she had figured out, in retrospect, that Adrian had kept her in the dark on purpose, that her genuine excitement about the wedding had been useful cover. She said she was disgusted with him. She said her parents were disgusted. She said her Aunt Patricia had started referring to him, reportedly, as that nephew I used to have. We had coffee. Then we had coffee again. It was easy, easier than it had ever been when Adrian was the thread connecting us. Turns out we just liked each other. She told me at our third coffee that Adrian had reached out asking if she thought I'd be willing to talk to him. She had told him no, that I had moved on. I told her that was exactly right. She looked relieved. Adrian, from what Nadia let slip and what I could observe from a distance, was having a difficult year. The firm had cut his role. He had moved twice since leaving the apartment, each place smaller. There were things I didn't know and didn't need to know. 3 weeks ago, I was walking back from a client meeting downtown, a tech startup on LaSalle Street, rebrand for a Series B funding round. It had gone well. I was still carrying a little of that particular good feeling you get when a presentation lands the way you'd hoped. I saw him across the street at a crosswalk, maybe 50 feet away. It took me a second because he looked different, smaller somehow. The bearing I'd known replaced by something tired and uncertain. His suit needed attention. He was checking his phone with the anxious focus of someone waiting for news he doesn't want to receive. He hadn't seen me. I watched him for maybe 4 seconds. Long enough to confirm what I felt, which was nothing much. Not anger, not satisfaction, not the grief I'd expected would eventually arrive. Just a mild observation. He looked smaller than I remembered. Then I kept walking. There was nothing to say, no scene to have. The legal system had spoken. The story was over. I went down into the L station. On the train home, I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, standing at the counter, booking flights for 8 people, trusting her husband, unaware. That woman was not stupid. That woman was not a fool. She had been betrayed by someone she had trusted, and trust is not something you should have to apologize for. She had just been operating on incomplete information for a very long time. The woman on the train home knew more, and knew herself better, and had made herself a life that fit. I got home and opened my laptop. I had a new project brief waiting. A women's shelter in Pilsen wanted a complete brand identity, pro bono, something they could use for the next decade. Good work. Work that mattered. I pulled up my color theory notes and started thinking about what a place like that needed to feel like to the people it served. My phone buzzed. A text from a number that had been lighting up my screen for the past couple of months. Someone I'd met at a design industry event in late spring. Easy and interesting, and apparently not in any hurry, which suited me fine. He said, "Dinner tonight?" I found a place. I smiled. I typed back, "Tell me about the place first." He sent me a link and a briefcase for why the lamb was allegedly life-changing. I put the phone down and kept working. I had 2 hours before I needed to start getting ready, and that was exactly enough time to make real progress. The marble island was still there, still the same island. I decided to keep it after all. It was a good counter, well made. It had nothing to do with him. I had paid for a trip I wasn't invited to. That was true. $11,200 for flights and hotel rooms for a wedding in Portugal from which I had been quietly, deliberately excluded. In return, I had gotten clarity, evidence, a lawyer with a yellow legal pad and no patience for nonsense, a neighbor who had kept records, a settlement that reflected 12 years of work. I'd gotten my business back, free and clear, my apartment, my name, my morning, best investment I ever made. If this story resonated with you, leave a like and consider subscribing. You can also drop any comment below, even just one word. Maybe tell me where you're watching from or what time it is right now. Sometimes one word is enough to say you were here.